Hello and welcome back to Tatooine and my Battle at the Sarlacc Pit series. It's taken me some time to record and edit this video, but I'm happy to finally share the final phase, Phase 3 for creating the debris field when Jabba's sail barge is destroyed. In this video I will demonstrate the techniques for how I created it and discuss some of the challenges. But before we get started with the tutorial, I'll provide another quick preview of the destruction of the sail barge and the 3 phases of the debris field. So Luke will jump across to the escape skiff, shoot our target here, which will start the sequence. Phase 1 is for the debris that comes to rest under the sail barge. Phase 2 is the flying debris during the 10 random explosions. And there is our Phase 3 for the mass flying debris that occurs when the sail barge explodes. In my previous video, I provided a tutorial of how to set up the camera views for the final explosion event of the sail barge. So this video is rather lengthy, but I'll provide a detailed discussion of the process and the settings for all the blocks that I use for the debris. Alright, first thing I had to consider was the scope of this final phase of the debris field. In other words, how much debris and how far away from the sail barge. So I kind of targeted this area here that I'm highlighting with my spark mode. It largely depends upon how you designed your terrain, if you followed my design or if you created your own. I decided that I was going to go along this back edge here of the Sarlacc Pit underneath the escape or the stationary skiff. And we have our random block that impacts here during the 10 random explosions. So I had to make a decision. Did I want the final phase to impact this skiff and destroy it, or go underneath it? I decided that that would kind of diminish the randomness of the one block hitting the bow. So I decided to go underneath it and actually not hit the skiff with the final phase. So continuing around here, this is kind of the area that I'm targeting, that I want to have my final phase of the debris field. And we're going to use, I used 6 individual paths with anywhere between 6 to 7 blocks, mimicking the blocks that we used to create the sail barge. So here I have a couple of buttons, 2 logic gates and 2 effects generators. This one has 2 locators connected to it, and I'll hook up the second one here. This will be for fire effects, and one with a single locator there just below it, that will be for the smoke plume effect. So on this first side I'm going to have 6 blocks and 3 effects. So from my button I'm going to do when pressed, input to this first logic gate, and from the second one, when pressed, we will input to the second logic gate. The first logic gate will be our on logic gate, and the second one will be our reset logic gate. And then from this first one, new logic connection on output, we'll come to our fire effects generator, and we'll say play looped. Come down to the fires category and select smoky flames. And then also from this logic gate, our on logic gate, we'll do new logic connection on output. Come over to our second effects generator, play looped, down to the smoke category, and select smoke plume. And this will be our reset logic gate. So here, new logic connection on output, and go to our fire effects generator and select stop looping effects, and we'll do the same thing here. New logic connection on output, we'll go to our smoke plume effects generator and also say stop looping effects. This is for when we reset the game. Alright, so we have 6 of these vertical wedge blocks. I'm going to use the horizontal wedge blocks because it looks better laying flat in the sand rather than standing up. And I'm going to create a path here for it. So I'm kind of centering it here off that locator for the camera view. And I'm going to place this above the terrain because if you place it below the terrain and you're working with the blocks above the terrain, the camera looks from the bottom up and you can't see. So we'll move that path point below the terrain when we're finished placing all the blocks. And you can see kind of how I'm targeting this here. So I have a single path creator with 3 additional path points for a total of 4. and I'm going to set the properties on all of these. For the speed modifier, I'm going to increase to 1,000. And I do this on all 6 paths. I'm not going to demonstrate creating all 6 paths. I will go into detail with the blocks, but I'm only going to do this the first time. So this path point here as well, adjust the speed modifier in properties to 1,000. This one here as well. Very similar to how we set our path properties for our random flying debris. And here for our path creator, excuse me, active will stay on, speed 300, which is the max. Auto start objects will turn that off. And our path point options, back down to our speed modifier, and we'll make that 1,000. Like I said, these settings will be the same for all 6 paths. I'm just not going to show it for the additional 5 paths. Alright, with our on logic gate, we'll do a new logic connection on output. Come up to our path creator, and you'll have to make these connections for all 6 paths as well if you're following my design. And we'll select reset and play, and that will make this debris start fly when the sail barge is destroyed. And on our reset logic gate, new logic connection on output, you'll have to do this for all 6 paths as well. At your path creator, do reset and stop, and that will pull the debris back down below the ground until the next time you're ready to blow up the sail barge. Alright, this is the logic gate that at the correct timing after the 10 random explosions sends a signal to the sail barge to pull it down below the terrain. So new logic connection on output. So when the sail barge disappears below the train, we want to simultaneously have the flying debris, phase 3 debris, come up from underneath the ground. So we will input to that logic gate, which is turning on the path as well as the effects. And this is our master reset when we reset the entire game. So new logic connection on output. We'll come to our reset logic gate here for our phase 3 debris and input to that, which will then turn off the effects and pull the debris blocks back below the train for the next time you play. Alright, so the blocks I decided to use is they mimic the vertical blocks but horizontally just because they look better. So I'm going to start with this long wedge block here. And you can do this any which way you want, but I'm kind of mimicking those 6 blocks along the right hand side, the upside down block, the right side long wedge block. So I place 3 there. I'll come over to this other side. I'm going to use the left side long wedge block here. Another long wedge block. And a right side long wedge block. If you use different blocks, your settings might be different than mine, but it's just a matter of trial and error. So now we can do new path connection in all of these and hooking them up to our path. And this is why I have the path creator up above the train, so I can see what I'm doing. And once everything is hooked up and properly placed, then we can pull this path down below. So here under properties, toy box path, I adjusted the speed to 60. And forward, backwards. I'm just setting this off to the left. It's not going to be the final setting. I'm just getting these spaced. And movement style will be one way and stop. Once we test this and the blocks are on the ground, then we'll come back and adjust the properties to move them in their final position. However, is whatever looks good to you. So we'll hook up the second block here to the toy box path. Under properties here, I adjusted the speed for this one to 75. I made the speeds a little different on all of these. I went anywhere between 60 and 85 for the phase 3. And again, I'm going to move this, it's the positive direction here, but I'm moving this off to the left here, just so that when I test it, they are all spaced out and not one big blob of blocks on top of each other. And we'll hook up this third one here on this side. And these speeds, you can make them whatever you want. I'm going to use 70 on that one. And again, I'm going to move it off a little bit to the left here. If we just left them all centered up, it would just be one big blob of blocks, and it would be hard to point to individual blocks in Spark mode. I'll come all the way over here to the far right when I'll hook this one up first. So you see I'm working from outside in. You probably would want to do the same thing as work outside in. And this one I set my speed to 65. I later came back and I changed it to 60. I don't remember why I did it, but 65, 60, whatever you want it to be. You could even make it faster or slower if you like. And I'm just going to push this off to the right side, so forward, backward, in the positive direction. It really doesn't matter what this number is. I'm just getting them spaced so that once I fire the button and the blocks fly onto the ground, we have adequate spacing to point to them and then make our final adjustments for their properties. This one again here. It's upside down, long wedge block. I made the speed 75 for that one. Again, I'll use the forward, backward, again in the positive direction for me, just to move it off to the right. And we'll have our sixth and final block here, a long wedge block. I'll hook that up to the path as well. And under our properties, I adjusted the speed to 65. I think that's why I made the far right one 60, just to make it different. And move it off there a little bit to the side, and one way and stop on all of these for your movement style, so it doesn't loop. Alright, so when I push the button here, they fly onto the ground. We get our two fire effects and our smoke effect. And when I hit my reset button, everything goes back to the starting position. Alright, so now with them in this position here, now we can go into Spark mode and we can start moving these around. And this is why the path creator is above the ground. If you pulled it below the ground, your camera view is going to go from underneath the train and you're not going to see it. So you saw I just adjusted the speed to 60 on that one. But that's up to you what you want to use. And you can see I went horizontal -5, vertical -2, and I pulled a little bit further out here to the left with a +22. And I gave it a bit of rotation, 45, and one way and stop, which we'd already set. And we'll go to our second block here. And our speed was already at 75, which we already set. Horizontal, I think I leave this one at 0. Vertical, -3. Forward, backward. Move it a little bit further there to about 13. And I gave this one a rotation all the way around, because I don't want them angled all facing the same way. 330 degrees. And our one way and stop, which was already set. So you see, once you get the blocks placed on the ground, it's pretty convenient and easy to move them around. So again, 65 on the speed for this third block. And I'm going to pull this out here to the right, +4 for the horizontal. -1 for the vertical. And I made my forward, backward -3, and I'll rotate that to a 60. Again, a lot of this you can do what looks good to you. I'll come back all the way over here to the right, so I'll work from the outside towards the middle on all of these. Speed was set to 60 already. And I pulled that one back, a -6 for the horizontal, -2 for the vertical. And we'll move it out to the right here, -23 for the forward, backwards. And I spun this one all the way around to 315 degrees. And of course we have our one way and stop. For the other 5 paths going around the sail barge, I repeated this process each time. I think I had horizontal of 2, vertical -1, forward, backward. We'll push it off here to the right a little bit more, +15, and a 30-degree rotation, and our one way and stop was already set. That leaves our final block. Speed was already adjusted to 70. horizontal at 0, -1 vertical, and -8 on the forward backward. And I did 165 on the rotation for this one, facing a little bit different way than the other ones. And our one-way and stop, of course. Alright. So that's what I decided for with these blocks here. So this first block, this third block, and this fifth block are going to have our effects. The first and fifth will have our fire effects, and the third one, the middle one here, will have the smoke plume. Go ahead and reset everything here, and I'm going to do a new path connection on these three locators, and I'm going to hook it up to the path. Now this is a little bit of a problem because unlike the blocks that move to the path and move along the path as you adjust the properties, these locators do not. They stay in place until you hit the reset button. So you see the locator stayed there, but I'm going to go ahead and do a path connection for all three of these locators. The problem with this is when you're adjusting the properties, you're doing it blindly because the locator won't move. So once I show you my settings for the locators, it took me a lot of experimentation to get to that point. I'm going to show you the final result, but I had to do it blindly. And so will you. And it also depends upon which direction your blue dot is facing. I think on these locators my blue dot is facing which way? Let's see. It's facing out towards the sand dune there. So this first one I want to match the speed to 60 because that's what I set the speed for the first block. And for right now I'm just moving this out. That was a bit of a guessing game, just a 10. I just wanted to get spacing on it, and then the movement style you'll set to one-way and stop. So I'm not worried about the exact placement just yet. I'm just getting something to separate these three effects locators. So getting down to the properties here, I want to match the speed of the third block, which is 75. That way it moves, the locator with the effect will move at the same exact speed as the block. Forward, backward, I move this to -10. And like I said, this is just to get these three locators separated, and one way and stop on your movement style, of course. So that's the two fire effects, and this will be the smoke plume. And to match that block, the third block, that second fire effect was for the fifth block. And -5 here because I'm trying to put this smoke plume between the other two fire effects, and then one way and stop. So that smoke plume is actually for the third block, and the two fire effects are for the first and third blocks. So now when I hit the reset button, this will place the locators up there at the path creator. And now when I hit the on button, we get our debris. And now we can see where our locators are. So this one here I want with that first block on the left. So like I said, it took trial and error. So I matched the speed. And by trial and error I had to adjust these properties. So the horizontal for me ended up being -5. Vertical 0. Forward, backwards at a +22. And you don't have to worry about rotation. And you see it didn't move. But not until I hit the reset button again will it reset to that position. And then our smoke plume here, which is right there. Actually, I think I'm going to do this fire effect first. So this is going to go to the fifth block, the one just to the right there. So the speed is matching that fifth block at 75. And for me, I had to move the horizontal, let's see, -2 it looks like. No vertical, forward, backward. -15. And the one way and stop. Now I'll come back to the locator for the smoke plume, and that will be placed in that third block there. The one just a little bit to the right. So again, the speed will match that block at 65. Horizontal -4. No vertical. Forward backward -5. Where did I set that? Nope. To 0. I'm looking at my notes here, that's why I'm pausing. So -4, 0, 0. Don't need a rotation, and one way, and stop. Alright, we'll hit our reset button. That will reset the location of those locators. So when we hit our on button here, now you can see our locator is perfectly centered up in that first block for the fire, our third block here for the smoke plume, and our fifth block for our second fire effect. And the speeds match so that the blocks and the special effects locator all move together. Go ahead and reset here. Alright, now we can take now that we have our blocks and our effects set where we need them to be, I'm going to move this along that edge of the sail barge, and I'm going to come about 2 spots below the bottom of the Sarlacc Pit terrain. And then we'll grab this second path point here. And right there along that edge of the rail, and then straight down. Right there, flush on the floor of the bottom level of the sail barge. Now you can adjust your third and fourth path points for however you want your arc to look. So you see if I moved it up and out just a little bit. And then if you want to move the bottom point here in closer or further away, and you could always come back and adjust your settings on your block and on your blocks and your locators if you did. I decided that I was happy with that, so I left it alone. So now when I hit the reset button, everything disappears back to the path creator below the terrain. And when we hit our on button, there it goes. So that will be sequenced to occur at the same time that the sail barge disappears under the terrain on its path. And that looks pretty good. So like I said, if you're following your own design on this or have your own terrain design, it just takes a little bit of time and patience and some trial and error to get your settings correct. Alright, let's move on to our path. So I've already laid in the paths here and all the blocks and effects. So this was the path that we just worked on here for this right-hand side with the 6 wedge blocks for the right side of the sail barge. I have another path right here that'll have 6 wedge blocks for the left-hand side of the sail barge. And that path is this one here. See, that's the second path point there. And my path creator, of course, when I did all this, the path creator was placed above the sail barge, and this is where I moved it to. About 2 blocks below that edge of the terrain, of the Sarlacc Pit terrain block. And then the second path point here is here at floor level, right along that edge. And you can see here's our opening there for the window. You can see how I put that right in the middle of that second vertical block. And here's our third path point here. All of these, the adjustments were made to 1,000. Our path creator, we left it active, we turn auto start off, we turn the speed modifier to 300, and then under the path point we made that speed modifier 1000, just like our first one. And you can see this one lines up right underneath this path point here for the extendable plank, and right into the edge of the opening of the Sarlacc Pit. Alright, so that takes care of the left and right sides, and I have two paths for the bow, one to the left front, one to the right front, and two paths for the stern, one to the left stern and right side of the stern. And that's the path point there, coming in right along that edge. That would be the second path point after the path creator. And one over from the center. And its path creator is right below it, about 2 spots below the bottom edge of the Sarlacc Pit. And you can see all those blocks that have already been connected. So there's our second path point. Again, all of these set to a speed of 1000. And I place my third one about in this location, kind of coming off, angling from the left front of the bow. And then the placement of the fourth and final point here, kind of close to that terrain seam. If you followed my terrain, just kind of showing about where I place that in relationship to that. Those locators you see are for the dirt impacts, which I'll cover in the final part of this video. Alright, for the right front of the bow, that is this particular path here, angles off the right front. And again, I use this edge here along this vertical block. So that's the second path point there. One in from the over to the right from the center. And the path creator, after the blocks were connected and the properties were adjusted, I drug it down next to the other one. And then our second path point is there. Again, don't drag your path creator and your second point below the sail barge until after all your blocks are hooked up, so you can see them move as you're adjusting the settings. That's why the reset button is there, is to reset the position of the blocks once the path creator is set in its proper place, as well as the second path point, which is the exit point from the vehicle. Again, here showing approximate placement of this end point for this path. Alright, for the right stern, that's this path here. And I've placed my second path point there, kind of under that left-hand front corner of Jabba's dais, along this edge right here of the opening. You can see the one next to it for the other side of the stern, which would be the left stern, left side of the stern. And this path point here, I actually moved it over a little bit to the left to get a little bit of space. It's not really important where this is. I didn't drop it straight down. So there's our second path point underneath the front right corner actually of Jabba's dais. Here's my third path point. Again, all these adjusted to 1000 on their speed. Our path creator active on, auto start off, the speed modifier 300, and under path point, that speed modifier also adjusted to 1000. Path point options. And here's the fourth and final point. And its approximate location to this seam here for the sand dune. That's one of the Agrabah set sand dunes, themed to Tatooine, of course. All right, our final path. This comes off the left stern. again along this edge of this opening, same as the other one, even with it. And right underneath this corner of Jabba's dais. And I pulled this path creator after all the blocks were hooked up and their settings were adjusted, as well as the locator. I pulled it off there a little bit to the right. So that was our path creator. This is our second path point. And then our third path point up here, going out here this direction. Kind of see the approximate orientation of that. That's I'm kind of panning around this and giving you a view of it. How it looks in relationship to the terrain and the excuse me, and the sail barge itself. And finally, our fourth and final path point. About its approximate location here from the terrain seams. Alright, so that's all 6 of my paths. Go ahead and hit my on button here. As you see, all my blocks have been connected and adjusted, as well as of all my effects. I don't show it here, but each time you add special effects, you'll have to connect your locators in the same way we did for the first 6 blocks. So here is the first 6 blocks that we already did for the right hand side. And starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks. These blocks mimic the stern there, with the long wedge blocks and the shorter wedge blocks, as well as a square block here. So I use 7 blocks here. So I'm going to show the properties here on this square block. Speed I set to 75, horizontal to -12, -1 vertical, forward +13, 30-degree rotation, and one-way and stop. And of course I did all of this before I dragged my path creator below the ground. And this also has a fire effect in it. So that locator was first connected to the fire effects generator and then connected to the path, and I had to adjust the properties for it. So here I matched the speed 75 to the square block. Horizontal 13, vertical 1, forward backward -13, rotation doesn't matter, and one way and stop. You can see my blue dot is facing forward there towards the sail barge. That's important, otherwise your settings will be different. 70 for the speed for this right side long wedge block, 3 on a horizontal, -1 vertical, 11 forward backward. I rotated it 300 degrees and one way and stop. And this ramp block here, properties, speed I set to 80. And you can see why you don't want to do this, adjust these settings when the path creator is below, because it gives you a look from underneath. So I had -9, -1, -6. I rotated it 315 degrees and one way and stop. This is why you need to connect your blocks and adjust the settings and your locators for your effects while your path creator is still above the ground. Alright, we have another long wedge block here, and this has a smoke plume effect with it as well. So here again, the properties. I got 65 on my speed. Horizontal is +5. -1 vertical. -5 forward backward. 285 was what I selected for rotation, and one way and stop. I forgot to do the locator. I'll come back to that. So I got this wedge block here. It has a fire effect with it as well. So the speed I set to 75, horizontal of 3, vertical of -1, forward backward -3. I set the angle to 330 degrees, and one way and stop. And for its fire effect locator, the blue dot again is facing towards the sail barge, towards the skiffs there. And the properties I used for this: toy box path 75 on the speed, -3 horizontal. I raised it up a +1, -2 forward backward. No rotation required, and one way and stop. Alright, so that's that. I think I'm going to get this one, yep. Alright, so this was our long wedge block that we already looked at the properties, but I forgot to look at the properties for the locator. I'm just trying to find the locator. There it is. Again, the blue dot is facing towards the sail barge, towards the skiffs there in the distance. And the properties: toy box path 65 on the speed, which matches that block, 7 horizontal, 0 vertical, +5 forward backward. You don't need a rotation, and one way and stop. Alright, we'll take a look at this block over here next. A left side long wedge block. I use 75 on the speed for this one, -9 horizontal, -2 vertical, -2 forward backward. I rotated it 330 degrees, and of course one way and stop, free movement style. And it also has a fire effect in it, with the blue dot again facing towards that escape skiff there. Properties match the speed of the block of 75. Went -1 horizontal, 0 vertical, forward backwards +11. No rotation, and one way and stop. Excuse me. Again. All right. I believe this is the final block here. It's a balcony block. Made the speed 85 on this one. +8 horizontal. -2 vertical. +11 forward backward, and 255 degrees on the rotation, and one way and stop. So for the left and right side, I used 6 blocks. For each of the 4 corners, left and right sides of the bow and left and right sides of the stern, I used 7 blocks. So those are the 7 blocks that are connected to this path here. That's the right stern. Okay, so here's the left stern. So I have another 7 blocks connected to this. And that includes this upside down wedge block with the smoke plume. That's 3, that's 4, 5, that one has a fire, 6, and this block over here is 7, and that locator is for dirt impact. Alright, I'll start with this upside down long wedge block here with the smoke plume coming out of it. So its properties: speed of 65, 100, let's see, minus 14 for the horizontal offset, minus 2 for the vertical, zero forward backward, and 45 rotation, and one way and stop. Again, my locator for the smoke plume was connected to the smoke effects generator. The blue dots facing the escape skiff there. And its properties, again, want to match the speed to the block. So that's set at 65 as well. 1 horizontal, 0 vertical, minus 16 forward backward, and one way and stop. Alright, we'll go to this ramp block here. This one here, I set the speed to 80. 17 horizontal, minus 1 vertical, minus 9 forward backward, 120 degree rotation, and one way and stop. And I decided to go with different speeds on all these blocks because I just thought they'd become, when the explosion happens, they'd have different amounts of energy in them, different sizes, so I didn't want them all landing at the exact same time. And you can visually see that they land at slightly different timings when they hit the ground. So this wedge block here, 75 on the speed, minus 6 horizontal, minus 2 vertical, plus 8 forward backward. I gave it a 165 degree rotation and one way and stop. And it has a locator connected to the fire effects. Blue dot again facing our escape skiff there. All of these have the blue dots facing the towards the skiffs. So I matched the speed of the block at 75, minus 8 horizontal, plus 1 vertical, minus 5 forward backward, 0 rotation, and one way and stop. Alright, we have another balcony block here with no effects. Again, I set the speed to 85, 0 horizontal, minus 3 vertical, forward backward plus 2. Made the angle 60 degrees for the rotation, and one way and stop. Alright, we have a right side long wedge block here with a locator for a fire effect. Speed I set to 60. Horizontal plus 3, minus 1 vertical, minus 11 forward backward, 30 rotation, and one way and stop. And of course, got the locator here connected to the fire effects generator. Blue dot facing the skiffs there. Going to match the speed on the properties of 60. I have 12 horizontal. 0 vertical. +1 forward backwards. And one way and stop. There it is. As you can tell, I'm kind of going slowly through this. For anyone that's following this, they can, that's for dirt effect, that particular I'm showing here. Those are the dirt effects locators. That's why they're laying there. As you can tell, I'm going slowly through this, so you have a chance to follow along in the video if you're recreating this. So for this ramp block, it doesn't have any effects. I made the speed 75. The horizontal minus 11. -1 vertical. +12 forward backward. I made the rotation 30. And one way and stop. And once again, to reiterate, you should be setting these up while your path creator is still above the ground. So we have a long wedge block here. Set the speed to 70. -9 horizontal. Vertical -2. 24 forward backward. I made the rotation there 315. And one way and stop. Sorry, I have a little bit of a dry cough here. Allergies. Alright, so those are the 7 blocks for the left rear stern of the. You can see we have 3 fire effects and 1 smoke plume effect. That's for this path here, next to my spark mode. Alright, the left-hand side of the sail barge, I use 6 of these horizontal situated wedge blocks. Start with this one here. Where am I going to go? No, I'm going to go over here. Alright, so this one on the left hand side, it has a flame effect with it. It's a long wedge block. Made the speed 70. 6 on the horizontal. Vertical +1. Forward backward -23. And 45 rotation. And of course, one way and stop. And now for the locator for the fire effect, connected to the fire effects generator again. That blue dot again is facing towards the skiff. That direction. And for my properties, I'm going to match the speed at 70. -22 horizontal. Vertical +2. -6 forward backward. And one way and stop. have a left side long wedge block here. Toy box path, 60 on my speed, 0 horizontal, 0 vertical, forward backward 16, 345-degree rotation, and one way and stop. My next block here is an upside down long wedge block with a locator connected to the smoke plume effects generator. So here I've set the speed to 75, -1 horizontal, -4 vertical, +5 forward backward, 30-degree rotation, and one way and stop. And for the locator for its smoke plume, its blue dot is facing into the edge of the, you can see it there, facing towards the front, the pointed end of the wedge, upside down wedge block. 75 matches the speed for the block, -4 horizontal, -2 vertical, -2 forward backward, and one way and stop. Alright, this is the fourth block for the left side. It's a long wedge block, no effects, 65 for the speed. -2 horizontal, 0 vertical, +5 forward backward, 345-degree rotation, and one way and stop. Alright, here's our fifth block, a right side long wedge block. And I adjusted the speed on this to 60. Got 3 horizontal, 0 vertical, -17 forward backward, 30 rotation, and one way and stop. And our sixth and final block here for the left side path is a left side long wedge block with the speed adjusted to 70. It also has a fire effect with it, -4 horizontal, 0 vertical, to -24 forward backward. I made the angle 330 for this one. And one way and stop. For its effects locator, again the blue dot is facing away from the sail barge towards the front end of the bow of that stationary skiff. Again, under properties, I had to match the speed to the block of 70. And then I made my horizontal +23. Vertical of 2. Forward backward of -5. And one way and stop. And I can't remember what I said before, but obviously, as you can see there, that's a flaming effect connected to the fire effects generator. So those are our 6 blocks for the left side path, which is this path right here, with that path point there. Alright, the left front bow. So that's this path here. And we have 6 blocks associated with, 7 blocks rather, 6 for the left and right side, and then 7 blocks for each of the 4 corners, front and back corners. That's 4th block, 5th block, 6th block, and the 7th block is over here. You can see we have 3 fire effects and 1 smoke plume. I tried not to overdo the smoke plumes just because it dominates the scene. I wanted to be able to see the flames as well as the debris, because the smoke plumes are pretty large. So I have a curve block here, which was one of the pieces we used to create the front of the sail barge. I set the speed to 60. I use -5 on the horizontal, -1 vertical, -10 forward backward, gave it a 225-degree rotation, and 1 way and stop. There it is. And it has a locator connected to the fire effects generator, with the blue dot again facing away from the sail barge in this case. All these blue dots were facing the same way. And the properties need to match the speed of the block, 60. -9 horizontal, 0 vertical, 5 forward backward, and 1 way and stop. Again, that's just for a dirt effect, which we'll get to at the end of this video. Alright, I have a quarter dome here. I use a few of these on the bow. So I set the speed to 85, -6, -1 vertical, 0 forward backward. I rotated it 30 degrees, and 1 way and stop. I don't think I mentioned it at all in this video, but obviously I've set my theme on all of these blocks to the kiln to match all the other debris as well as the sail barge. We have a square block here, speed set to 75, 1 horizontal, -1 vertical, 2 forward backward, 60-degree rotation, and 1 way and stop. Alright, let's come out to this next quarter dome, which has a flame effect with it as well. Here I set the speed to 85, -3 horizontal, vertical -1, forward backwards 18, 210 rotation, and 1 way and stop. And for our fire effect for our locator, again, the blue dot is, you can see which way it's facing there, that direction. And under properties, after it's been connected to the path, toy box path, speed should match the block of 85, 18 horizontal, 1 vertical, forward backward at 4, and 1 way and stop. Alright, we have an upside down long wedge block here with a smoke plume coming out of it. Speed is set to 65. Horizontal is 0, -2 vertical, -12 forward backward, and 45 rotation, 1 way and stop. And we have a locator connected to the smoke plume effects generator. Again, the blue dot facing that direction there, kind of away from the barge on this side. Need to match the speed of the block at 65. -1 horizontal. 0 vertical. -13 forward backward. And 1 way and stop. That's the 5th block for the left front, left bow quadrant. Alright, we got a square block here. Properties for that. 75 on the speed. +10 horizontal. -2 vertical. +11 forward backward. 30-degree rotation. And 1 way and stop. And our final block here is a left side long wedge block with a fire effect. Properties are 70. +18 horizontal. -1 vertical. -16 forward backwards. 330 rotation. And 1 way and stop. Alright, for our locator again, blue dots facing the same direction in all of these, towards that hillside over there. Again, we need to match the speed of the block. +70, 16 horizontal, +1 vertical, -16 forward backward, and 1 way and stop. So that completes the 7 blocks for the left bow. Left front. That's those blocks there. Used similar blocks for the right front or right bow. And that there was our path for the left bow. So 1 more set of blocks to go, and the phase 3 debris and their effects will be complete. So that is the right front or right bow. Go ahead and I'll start with this quarter dome, will I? Oh, I'm just showing the blocks here. So we have these 4 blocks. There's another quarter dome, 5, a square block, 6, and this round half circular block here, curve block, that's what it's called. That's the 7th one. So I'll start with that one. Set my speed to 60. -4 horizontal. -1 vertical. +11 forward backward. 150 rotation. And 1 way and stop. And it has a smoke plume effect, so that locator is hooked up to that smoke plume effects generator. You can see my generators in the background there. And the blue dot is facing towards the sail barge now on this side of it. And its properties. Going to match the speed of the block at 60. -11 horizontal. 0 vertical. -5 forward backward. And 1 way and stop. We're getting there. Alright, I have a square block. $75. 4 on a horizontal. -2 vertical, 8 forward backward, 30 rotation, and 1 way and stop. So again, for these block selection, I mimicked the blocks that were used in each of the sections of the sail barge. I did not use any of the flat floor pieces at the top or the stairs. So for this quarter dome, excuse me again, made my speed 85, -5 horizontal, -1 vertical, +10 forward backward. I rotated it 330 degrees, and 1 way and stop. It has a smoke plume effect, and you can see that the blue dot there is facing towards that direction, in general direction towards the sail barge and the skiffs. So match the speed of the block at 85, +5 horizontal, no vertical, -10 forward backward, and 1 way and stop. Alright, I'll come over here to this right side long wedge block. No effects in it. I made the speed 70. 14 horizontal. -2 vertical. +8 forward backward. 30 rotation. And 1 way and stop. Have another quarter dome here. Speed of this one is 80, -8, -1, -17 forward backward, 45-degree rotation, and 1 way and stop. And come back here to this wedge block, long wedge block that has a fire effect. And I made the speed 60 on this one. -1 horizontal, -1 vertical, -10 forward backwards, 330-degree rotation, and 1 way and stop. And for its locator connected to the fire effects generator, blue dot again is facing that general direction there towards the vehicles. And in its properties, we'll match the speed of the block. 60, 0, 0, +10 forward backwards, and 1 way and stop. And that leaves one final block to go, this square block, which also has a flame effect. -85 on the speed, -6 horizontal, -1 vertical, -3 forward backward, 60 rotation, and 1 way and stop. And for its effects locator, the blue dot again facing that same direction, in the general direction of facing towards the vehicles. We'll match the speed of 85, 6 horizontal, 0 vertical, 3 forward backward, and 1 way and stop. That should be all 7 blocks and their effects for the right front bow of the sail barge. And that completes the debris and the smoke and flame effects for the Phase 3 flying debris. And that's along, those 7 blocks are off of this path here, off the right front. And we can see how the whole thing lays out there. When the Phase 1 debris comes up underneath the sail barge, when it's destroyed, it kind of fills in all that area underneath the sail barge and makes for one nice, large, expansive debris field with flames and smoke. I'll go ahead and reset this, give it a test here. I thought I was going to test it now. I think what we're going to do next here is we're going to move on to our effects. Yep. So I've added a third effects generator here, and this will be for our dirt impacts, and I've placed 20 locators, which I've connected all 20 of them to this third effects generator for the dirt impacts. And these will be placed around the sail barge here in the general vicinity of where these blocks hit the terrain. So you can see I have all 20 of those connected. Now my original plan was that I would take this particular path point here off the right front bow, and I would do a new logic connection point reached by object on the path, and that I would input to this effects generator. Thing is I have 7 blocks, so I'm getting 7 signals to this effects generator, and it was blowing the memory. It was exceeding the memory limits so bad that it was actually causing the entire game to crash, because each block was sending its own impact, or each block, when it reached the point, was sending its own individual signal to this. So I had to come up with a different way to do this. So I'm going to create a separate path, because I only want to send a single signal to this effects generator, because you're going to have the smoke going on, you're going to have the fire going on, a lot's happening visually, and you have to be careful not to exceed your memory limits, because it'll crash the game. If it doesn't crash the toy box, it'll crash the entire game. So I'm going to place a locator here next to this path point here off the right bow for our Phase 3. I'm going to grab a path creator here, and I'm going to kind of come right beside this. So I'm going to go right here in the middle between the left front bow and the right front bow. I'm going to drag this down underneath the terrain and place it in the middle between the two of them, about 2 spots below the bottom of the Sarlacc Pit terrain block. So right there. And I think I glitched, so I need to delete this out. It didn't draw a path, so I'm going to replace this. That's what I did. I deleted it, replaced my path creator. Alright, now I'm getting a yellow line. So I'll place this second path point here at floor level between those other 2 path points. And then I'm going to come out here, and I'm just going to follow this one off the right front. And my fourth and final point, I will place that right next to this path endpoint for the right front flying debris. I'm going to adjust all the speeds on these to 1,000 to match our other 6 paths. So that'll be 1,000. That was the fourth and final path point. We'll come up here to the third one. We'll adjust that speed modifier to 1,000 as well. And then we'll come inside the sail barge here, and we'll go to the one at floor level, which is our second path point. And I'm going to set that as well to 1,000 on the speed modifier. then we'll come on down to our path creator and we'll set up its properties a little further down. There it is right there. Now I didn't have to do this above the terrain because I'm not going to adjust the position of the locator. So here are the properties: active on, speed 300, auto start will be switched to off, and path point options, set the speed modifier to 1000, which you should have done on your other 6 paths for the phase 3 flying debris. Alright, let's go ahead and what are we going to do next here? We're going to hook up our logic gates to turn on and reset that path creator. So for our on logic gate here, on output, we'll come down to that path creator, which is this middle one here, right there, and we'll do a reset and play. Then we'll come back to our logic gate for our reset logic. And once again, we'll do a new logic connection, output, come back down under the ground to your path creator. If you wanted to, you could do this above the terrain and then drag it down afterwards. I just knew I didn't need to adjust the properties of the locator, so I could do this all underground. And here I'm going to do reset and stop for that particular path creator, the one right there in the middle. Alright, now we can hook up our locator. Doesn't matter where the blue dot is facing. So new path connection. And we'll connect that to the toy box path. And then we'll adjust its properties. Just speed and movement style. So for the phase 3 flying debris, I use a speed anywhere between 60 and 85. So the average of that is approximately 72. So I set the speed of this to 72. It's a good average of the speed that the blocks are flying at. And then the only other thing we need to do is select one way and stop for the movement style. So now we're going to come over to this path endpoint that this locator is connected to, and we'll say new logic connection. When the point is reached by the object on the path, so when the locator reaches that point, we will send a signal to this effects generator to play once. We'll come down to our impacts category, and I'm going to select large dirt impact. I was careful not to add too many dirt impacts because I don't want to blow the memory, because there's going to be a lot going on else with the enemy. So when I hit reset, that placed that locator, and now you can see when I hit the on button that we get our flying debris with the smoke and fire effects, and we get a single play of the dirt impact. We'll take another look at that here again. And there goes our dirt, and you can see I'm not blowing the memory. Initially, because I went off the other path point, I was getting 7 input signals and I was blowing the memory and crashing the game. So now we're just going to place these around. Just trying to target kind of open areas here between the blocks. Depending upon the memory limits of your game, you could potentially have more of these. Like I said, I still haven't put in the gameplay yet for creating enemies and everything else. So I'm hoping that I won't have to delete any of this. So far I've made some progress on the gameplay, and I'm still well within my memory limits. And I'm just kind of moving these around to get them close to give an overall good coverage of where these blocks have impacted. And depending upon your camera view, like my camera view, the distance it is away from the entire scene to see the whole thing, the dirt impacts, they're visible, but not overly visible. At least I know they're there. So once again, I'm just placing these for anyone following along with me. The exact placement isn't required, but I'm just giving you the detail of what I did if you're following my specifications. You can see those other locators there underneath the sail barge. Those were the dirt impacts underneath the sail barge for the Phase 1 debris. Some of this, it may not even really matter because underneath it you're probably not going to see it, but who knows, you may change your camera views from time to time. I might change my camera views. I might get bored of the camera views I have and come up with a different way of doing the camera views. So you never know how that might change what is visible and what is not visible for the special effects of this entire event of blowing up Jabba sail barge. I do kind of like get the little bit of visual impact of seeing the dirt effects roll down into the opening of the Sarlacc Pit. Kind of like why I like placing them along the edge there of the Sarlacc Pit. Again, here for these, it really, because you're not adjusting the location of them through a path, it really doesn't matter where the blue dot is facing. In fact, in this case, I think I have my blue dot facing differently than the other locators. I'm trying to keep about an even spacing on these. I only have 20 of them, and I got to get all the way around the sail barge. And I ended up being happy with my final result. I actually haven't gone back and adjusted or added. I haven't adjusted any of these or added any more. You see I kind of grabbed one there a little bit out of order. That doesn't matter either. And we're just continuing around here. We're almost done. 5 more to place. Again, I'm just kind of visually going what I think will aesthetically look good. I'm trying to place them so that they're kind of in the openings between blocks. Because if I did one for every single block, I'd have over 40 effects going on. And again, you have to worry about your memory utilization. That you have to be careful not to exceed the memory limits. Alright, last one to place. And that's it. That's what I've come up with for the final Phase 3 of the debris that occurs when the sail barge is finally destroyed. I'll hit our reset button here. Now we'll give it a good test here. Our flying debris, our effects, and you can see our dirt impacts. They're playing once while our other effects loop until we reset. One more time. Let's see what that looks like. So I think that looks pretty cool. Makes for a pretty detailed scene. Alright, last thing, I'm going to grab my effects generators here. So this was my fire effects generator, and you can see I have placed these decorations, these exclamation points. So this first one here, this was the fire, smoke plume, and dirt impacts for our phase 1 debris field. The 2 exclamation points here, this is our phase 2 during our random explosions, and all we had was 1 fire and 9 dirt impacts, no smoke plumes. And I have 3 exclamation points here for our final phase 3. So I'm going to put the fire effect there in line with the other 2 fire effects. This is my smoke plume effect here. And I will put this in line with the phase 3 here, also in line with the smoke plume effect from phase 1. And we'll grab our final dirt impact here, final effects generator. This again will be in the row for phase 3, in line with our dirt impacts for phase 1 and 2. So I keep them all organized. Phase 1, 2, and 3, fire, smoke, and dirt, respectively. This is our on or reset and play logic gate for our phase 3 debris and effects. So I'm going to pull this down. I'm going to place this just ahead of our main logic gate here that controls our phase 1 debris as well as the sail barge, because all of that happens at the same time. The sail barge disappears below the terrain. The phase 1 debris comes up from underneath the terrain sit under the footprint of the sail barge. Phase 3 will be the flying debris. And this is our reset logic gate for phase 3, and we'll set this just ahead of our main master reset logic gate, because this logic gate is connected to that logic gate to input, and this logic gate inputs to that logic gate. So that keeps that nice and organized. One more time. Alright, so that completes the build sequence for our skiffs, our sail barge, destroying it, all the associated effects, and creating all 3 phases of the debris field and the associated effects. So once again, if you made it all the way through this, thanks for joining me, and have a great day.